All right, we're live for another Friday edition of the Mike and Mario Show. And wow, what a week it has been. Mario, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I mean, there's so much going on. And it's not just a week. The last 2, 3 weeks
Yeah,
seem like
2022 in general.
a lifetime.
Yeah,
ever ever since March 2020, it's just been crazy.
yeah, never-ending things worth discussing. But yet, it looks like things are intensifying with a lot of talk about precious metals, implosion of all those rigged systems that they've put in place, and the like. But anyway, before we dive further, welcome to the live stream. For those that are joining us, definitely hit the thumbs up button and throw out some thoughts or comments or questions in the chat. We'll jump on those as we move along. But let's just, I guess, go back to last week, and then we'll build up into this week. And let's just, I guess I'll play a video first, but we're going to talk about something that I think might have flown under the radar in its entirety. And that's JP, Jerome Powell, hinting at the dual reserve currency possibilities. So before we talk about that and shine more light on that, let's just listen to this quick segment of JP himself mentioning that.
We do benefit from being the reserve currency for the main reserve currency for the world. And that really is because we have open capital accounts and the rule of law, and we have inflation, over a long period of time under control, so that the dollar preserves its value. And so our markets are the most liquid, and it's the place where people want to be. Over time, the question is, if some want to move away from the dollar, what will be the effect on us? I don't think it's something you would feel right away. Over time, they would have to create an economic ecosystem whereby another currency becomes, a better currency for them to use. What we can do is we can make the dollar the most attractive currency by continuing to have the rule of law and open capital accounts and make it an attractive place for people to invest and to use in their businesses. There wouldn't be any short-term effect of that. Over time, though, I suppose it would diminish our status as the reserve currency. It's also possible to have more than one large reserve currency, and there have been times when that was the case, and so it's not really clear.
All right, so there is a possibility of having a dual reserve currency. So what are some things that jumped out to you on that behind that statement there?
What jumped out to me is the fact that he said we need to do everything to keep the dollar strong. We have to keep the rule of law. That might be so, keep the rule of law domestically, but internationally, they're ripping up the rule of law.
Yeah.
And some people might argue, yeah, they've done it. There's a good reason for it, but still, it's scaring a lot of other countries. And I think what all the sanctions and taking the Russians out of SWIFT, freezing central bank fiat reserves.
Right.
That's just another nail in the coffin of the dollar. And prior to the dollar, yes, there were other reserve currencies, but in the last 400, 500 years, there's never been more than one.
Right.
And usually those currencies were either, as good as gold or sometimes silver. I think during the Spanish Empire, and maybe in the 1600s, they had a lot of silver. That was the standard.
Yeah.
But I'm not really sure what he's talking about there. There have been several reserve currencies.
Right. And then along with that, it's just it puts more pressure on the U.S. to call themselves defending the dollar. At the same time, the world has already chosen the alternative that they're going to use. And of course, that plays into the whole rush to gold over the last several years. And as a result of that statement there, the next week, earlier this week, we get articles talking about the need to freeze Russia's gold. And so got the wrong one here. The need to freeze Russian gold reserves. And so that brought up a lot of questions as to, like, where did this come from? Like, if gold is irrelevant, it's a barbarous relic, nobody really pays attention these days, then why would you need to really mess with Russia's gold as if it's something that you can actually do? But once again, leads to more of a reason why. And I'd assume that has a lot to do with the next monetary structure that's already in play, and it has a lot to do with gold. So, but yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, Russia, they've been accumulating gold since around 2006.
Right.
So have the Chinese, the Indians as well. In the last 3-4 years, they're accumulating a lot of gold. And luckily, or not luckily, but the Russians have been clever to keep all their gold at home. So
Yeah.
they've got about 2,300 metric tons, which is worth around $140 billion today. So what the U.S. politicians or lawmakers are saying is completely irrelevant, in my opinion, because they're trying to scare other countries, probably countries that are more prone to deal with Russia
Yeah.
from dealing with that with Russian gold. They're saying, "Oh, we're going to sanction you," but the sanctions are the problem.
Right.
And to you and I, this is not surprising what's happening now, because we've been following this for the last few years, the
Yeah.
petrodollar, and Putin has been warning that the Americans are shooting themselves in the foot by
Right.
using the dollar as a weapon. So we've seen this week as well, for example, that the Saudis now are talking about building a refinery with China.
Yeah.
They've just built a pipeline in the last few years for natural gas from Russia to China.
Yeah.
We've got the Central Bank of Russia. They have like an office now, I think, in Shanghai or Beijing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all ready to trade.
Right.
And I've been speaking about this for 3-4 years, how also the Chinese opened the Shanghai Gold Exchange, the metals exchange, and they'll accept yuan, not dollars. So I think all that infrastructure that Jay Powell talked about, that
Yeah.
they will develop an ecosystem, that's been developed already. And
Yeah.
I think he probably knows it, but he doesn't want to like let the public know.
Right.
He's being economical with the truth.
Right. And I think in his current environment now, with all the narratives of sanctions, even today I heard about there was news I just tweeted about there's more sanctions coming on imports, seafood, alcohol, and all types of things. They're trying to sanction further on Russia. So there's a time span of which they can do all this big talk about what they can do to the Russian economy. But yet, of course, just when you see graphs like this just proves the fact that there's been some type of ramp up in getting physical gold. And that time used for this has allowed all the other nations, predominantly the BRICS nations, which I think is going to be the primary tool that's used against the current Western dollar dominance underway. But what I think that dual currency mentioned has to do, and that's the article you sent me from International Man about, the imminent threat of the monetary reset, and it including gold coming from the Eastern nations. And so this article here that you sent was quite good, just because it highlights how the West is feeling the pressure. And I think that plays a lot into their need to talk about freezing gold as if it was something they actually could do. So, but yeah, I think we're going closer to that moment where, as I always say, they're going to cut on a light switch and gold will shine brighter than ever. And then you factor in, for whatever reason, outside of the nickel situation this week, gold happened to have almost touched that all-time high of 2,070. We were about $18 short of it, but I think maybe next week we could probably see something that would take us above that 2,070. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed intraday we did go up to 2070, maybe 2050 was the settlement, but
Yeah.
I think the bullion banks were trying to paint the tape, as people call it in the markets, and, by painting a double top. But I think I'm not concerned about the fiat price of gold.
Right.
It also touched an all-time high in pounds. It made new all-time highs in euros and Japanese yen. And yes, that article for International Man also commented that the countries that would probably join Russia and start dealing maybe in gold represent half the world's population, 4 billion people. So it would be really hard to unless the U.S. wanted to go to war with all these people.
Yeah.
How can they really keep track of what people are doing? And it talks about all the payment systems and credit card systems they've been working on that are
Yeah.
all working already. And
Yeah.
just to tell the public who are viewing this, and most of you know already, we're not trying to defend China, Russia, and go against the West. We're just trying to tell you what's going
Yeah.
on so
Yeah.
that we can better protect ourselves.
Right.
And that's why we've been talking about stacking for years, isn't it? Gold
Right.
and silver. And I think it's going to come in very handy.
Very true. Like no matter what side, we know it's a tug of war between the East and West, but we happen to be stuck in the middle. And the biggest lesson I think we can take away from all this monetary financial chaos is that watch what the nations are doing. They are running towards metal. They're adding to their reserves, and so of course everybody tuning into you and I, they know the importance of adding to your reserves along the way. Outside of all the other things that you could use to brace and prepare for just a monetary reset. It happens give or take every 100 years or so. And we happen to be on the cusp of the next shift in world power, and everything appears to be heading out east, and gold will be the difference maker, and so of course silver follows along and everything else. But we all know what time it is. Just a matter of just continue to just do what we've already been doing. Let's keep moving to the next subject matter. What do you want to touch on? We got the whole, because you kind of touched on the oil situation. Of course, I think oil is going to be a major player in this, the pricing of oil rather.
Yeah, maybe we could touch upon that, and also commodities in general.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've noticed, and I did a video 2 weeks ago or so, and I looked at all the major currencies, how they've done against gold, and I found that the only currency that's up against gold this year is the Brazilian real, and that's quite telling. And I think it's mainly because there's going to be a shift now with the relative, let's say, not collapse, but with the dollar becoming less important, the financialization of the world is going to be not as important. I think the world will need to focus more on real things. So countries like Russia, Brazil, and even the US that have a lot of natural resources, they should do well. And natural resources and commodities should do well as well. I think, and that's what commodity is telling us, because we've been, even the CRB, for example, it's not even close to the all-time high from '08. So there's still a lot of room for it. And I think a lot of the air is flowing out of paper assets. And it's got to do a little bit with that, and also with the geopolitical shift.
Yeah. Now, what just to touch on the commodity space, with nickel, for example. And so I think wheat and nickel, and of course we had that the crude oil surge as well. So the mechanisms that they've created to control the price, they're clearly losing control of those vehicles that they've created, just because of all the underlying betting and gambling that they do on trying to short. And so we had the Asian company, I think, that tried to short the nickel market, and I guess I heard some $8 or $9 billion or something, and then he was kind of bailed out a little bit. And so all these institutions trying to bet on the future activity of the price wise, that right there is look like it's turning against them in a sense. But will they be able to sustain this moving forward, especially when it comes to gold and silver? How much longer can they paper over these events?
So what happened in the nickel market, I think, is that the producers, this Chinese company, they were hedging forward their production of nickel. And I think all the volatility we're seeing in nickel and other markets, oil, is you're going to hear the mainstream saying it's because of all the war, the lockdowns and everything. But I think underlying this volatility is the fact that the dollar is becoming more and more fragile. There's less demand for dollars. And when a reserve currency loses its status a little bit and people demand less of it, its value fluctuates more. And that's what commodity is telling us. And up until recently, the dollar has been the most stable currency because it was the major reserve currency, and other countries kept it stable because they always had a demand for it. So I think that's what commodities are telling us. And eventually, I think you could see a lot of these commodity markets flow eastward and see them priced in other currencies, be it the ruble or the yuan, or even the Brazilian real, I would say.
Yeah. And so here's just our graph of nickel. And as of right now, I guess it's settled back down to 80,000 rather than, I think it was got up to 101,000. But speaking of new pricing mechanisms, I was definitely going to jump on the oil side of things, because that plays into, let me find my little banner thingy here so I can try to have some order with this. But no, I didn't have it. But with the current Saudi Aramco, and you mentioned that earlier, and that plays into the PetroYuan and how that's been quietly under the surface progressing. And that came about over the last 4 or 5 years. I did a little diving just to find out, how that's progressed. But when you have the Russian economy being destroyed and no one really willing to do business with Russia other than China, as well as the OPEC nations, there's an article here talking about China looking to do more investing now in Russia because of how cheap things are. So here we got Saudi Aramco and Sinopec sign a memorandum of understanding for potential downstream collaboration in China. And so this furthers their partnerships. And it's good to say it's not priced in the petrodollar system at all. So this is just going to advance more. And then another article I did a little deep dive on the PetroYuan, and just talks about how the operation was given context where the China-dominated crude oil importations with approximately 400 million tons as of 2017, as stated by Sinopec, one of China's biggest companies. So you got Sinopec and Saudi Aramco doing some heavy things behind the scene. And let me got another article here. And then we have this as well. Saudi Arabia denied a call from the White House talking about oil. And I assume that any other time, given this current reset that's underway, Saudi Arabia might have been quick to answer a call from their former protectors and defenders from the East. But now it looks like Saudi Arabia and the UAE is jumping ship and going East. So they denied Mr. Biden's call. So
yeah, I think as well. Yesterday, the FT of London came out with a story saying that someone in the UAE said they were going to help out. So, which was completely, or maybe 2 days ago. So they came out and denied it. What else in terms of oil? Yeah, you talked about how even the Chinese now also want to go into Russia and buy some of the energy companies there, like Gazprom, because they're bargain basement values right now. Yesterday, I'll give you an example. There's a company that I've been following for years, and here in London, and it's a UK domiciled company, and it used to be called Peter Hambro Gold. And then Peter Hambro, he is from the Hambro family. They were like merchant bankers. But then the company changed its name to Petropavlovsk, which is a Russian name. And they do gold mining in Eastern Russia, but they're based in the UK, domiciled in the UK, listed on the London Stock Exchange. And I thought about them yesterday. I thought, oh, I wonder how that company is doing. And I looked it up, and it had dropped a lot. It's worth 3 pennies right now. And I thought, oh, I'm going to buy some. And then I put the order in, and the broker said, oh, you can only close your position. You can't buy. And I thought, this is a UK company. Yes, they've got gold mining in Russia, but why are you stopping them? It's just crazy what's happening. So, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people in Russia who are going to be buying that company, and they're going to do really well.
Right. So it's just off first glance, it sounds like, they're limiting your access to be a part of that, because it's probably going to be saved for the insiders or the big boys. So they don't want your average investor getting a hold of that.
Maybe the big boys here too, like the Rothschilds and the
right. So here's the article I was mentioned to bring up that you referred to. China to exploit West ban on Russian energy by buying up cheap oil and gas, the report says. So and that was one of the things I was mentioning, how right now no one's willing to do business with Russia like that, but China appears to be willing to, and the U.S. can't really do anything about it because they're not jumping on board with the sanctioning stuff. So
I made a complaint to the equivalent of the SEC here, called the FCA about that. Because I said it's a UK company, and then they gave me a phone number for the UK, Her Majesty's Treasury, the Treasury, and it's a Office of Sanctions Implementations. So I actually spoke to someone there, and they were very nice. And I said, "This doesn't seem right that you're blocking people from doing that." The lady said, "Well, write an email to us and tell us, what you think."
Yeah.
So at least they're listening to you. But I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to be closed out from buying really cheap assets,
Mm-hmm.
and probably because they don't want people like us benefiting from it. Because, like you said, there's a great reset coming.
Right, and that's
Not
right, and that goes into like the mindset that a lot of people have about this newer asset class called the digital asset space. So we had this past Wednesday some regulatory framework came out. Nothing really shining light on the overall usage of cryptocurrencies here in the U.S. other than just making it sound user friendly. But then again, it was all based upon the CBDC stuff, and so that to me, like, they're willing and wanting to steer you in that direction, but yet when it comes time to get exposure to real world items such as mining companies and things like that, oh no, you can't do that. That's not safe, and especially if it links to Russia. Oh, that's we're trying to punish them, so you can't participate, but we'll do it.
We're also seeing, which is weird, a lot of the Western big multinationals who have business in Russia, they're all like closing down.
Yeah.
And at the urging of governments like US and UK.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what Russia's doing is actually nationalizing all their assets.
Yeah.
And they'll probably sell it off into the market. I don't think they want the government to run it. They know that central planning doesn't work. It didn't work during the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
But that's another huge. It almost seems like they're like rearranging the game, and they're actually okay with the Russians taking over these assets because you've got like Goldman Sachs they're gonna not operate anymore. You've got McDonald's, Starbucks, all the Visa, Google Pay.
Yeah.
So all those assets are going to be taken over by Russia and nationalized.
Right. But hey, guess which bank is not going to be leaving Russia?
JP Morgan,
Deutsche Bank.
Oh, Deutsche Bank.
They said they don't see it. They don't see it as being a viable option right now for us to leave. And then somebody commented on Twitter, I guess it's the primary money laundering channel that's used between the East and the West. So of course they can't shut that down. But we won't hear any type of backlash or push from any other governments or nothing like that saying no, you must leave. Nope. They got to keep one channel open at least.
Yeah, the U.S. Congress is not going to sanction Deutsche Bank, is it?
Right. Not at all. All right, so let's keep moving along. So for those tuning in, feel free to throw out some thoughts or some questions or whatnot. We'll try to jump on them. A couple more stories worth touching on. And of course, over the last couple of days, gas prices here, and assume as well in the UK, has been abnormally high. And Putin was reported as saying, blame Russia, for that. It's nothing he can do about it. And so I want to show this.
Like a joke.
No, but dead face serious, like, blame Russia. It's nothing I can do about it. Like, I'm like, oh, damn, like, okay. But last week you're talking about trying to bring costs down, and then during his little speech, he talked about how he was very transparent with the American people, saying that, I mentioned to you guys that as a part of this, putting pressure on Russia, it's going to cause some pain here on the home front, but it's something we have to be willing to do in order to, make them pay for what they're doing. I'm like, okay, sure.
I've got another interesting point that I heard from a YouTuber called Gonzalo Lira, and I highly recommend that YouTube channel. So it's GONZALO
Yeah,
and he used to write. He was quite big in on Zero Hedge, and he used to. He's a Ivy League educated Dartmouth, but he's from Chile, and he lives in Ukraine now. And he said that all these sanctions, yes, they're going to hurt Russia in the short term, in the next few months. But what Russia is giving up is like the luxury goods and the luxury cars from Europe. But they're going to have all the things they need to survive on. They're going to be okay. While the West, we're going to have the the Gucci, Louis Vuitton, BMWs, but our basic necessities are going to be unaffordable. So who really wins?
Yeah, so I was ranting about that earlier this week. I'm like, as of right now, with with Putin or Russia deliberately closing themselves off from the world, they're talking about probably holding back, of course, on fertilizer and uranium, and they'll do special deals with probably the BRIC nations or whatever. But I was saying basically the essentials of life, the core essentials of life, are heavily concentrated in the Russian Siberian region, to where if they decide to shut off to the world, they're going to be okay. Even like one of their agricultural ministers came out saying that they're looking to have an abundant crop this upcoming year. I'm like, well, I'm over here. If we don't get fertilizer, we're not gonna have much of a crop at all. So it's like, what are they deliberately trying to do? And it's become more obvious that they're deliberately trying to starve the world, especially the deep state, whoever the hell they are.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it would be the Russians, even though it looks like it is. But like Gonzalo Lira, give him credit. He was talking about this. He said that it's not just Russia; it's going to be Ukraine and Belarus. Those three countries apparently export half of Europe's food needs, and and Europe is sanctioning Russia. They're not just going to stand idly and take it. They're going to punch back, and they could cut a lot of that food export to Europe. And I don't really know what the it's crazy what they're doing. It's like they've come to a point where they're fighting in a new system, and they're negotiating to see who's going to end up
controlling, either controlling it all.
Yeah. No, not all, but it's just going to be up since World War II. It's mostly the Anglo-American and the Europeans controlled everything, and now that game is changing. And what I think we're seeing is behind the scenes. We don't know what's going on, but they're portraying it as a war and sanctions. But I think, and that's true. I'm not saying that's not true, but I think it's a much bigger thing happening. And hopefully, knowing this will help us, survive through this. Maybe even profit and do well, because there's an old Chinese proverb about crisis and opportunity being the same.
Right. One of the biggest difference between this transition, so I found this little map here just showing how, as I mentioned, every 80 to 100 years, there's a shift in the monetary structure, as well as the end of one empire and the birth of another one. And so whoever leads this next charge, it appears to be an Eastern-driven, some leadership from outside that region there. But one thing that's different than prior is that with technology now, it makes it that much harder for individuals to actually have a sense of freedom / opportunity, because we got CBDCs, which is a part of their shift. Every nation's on board with it, whether we like it or not. We got the health pass stuff that's still in play, even though it's breaking apart at the seams. But yet now, using technology, it itself can be used against humanity as a weapon, to where it makes it that much harder to overall feel like you're free, because your phone, your internet, everything else is still plugged in to that one source, and we don't write the code or control the servers. So that's the tough part. But as long as we can do something about it, sure.
CBDCs are worrying, because I've been hearing, I saw on Twitter, I think someone from Austria the other day said, is anyone else in other countries getting this problem? Apparently, a lot of the ATMs are not working there. I think recently that they're closing ATMs in Australia.
Yeah.
And here they're talking about programmable CBDCs. And I heard someone at my golf club the other day. After I played, I was having a drink with my friend, and someone else was talking, oh, there's no more banks around. They're closing all the branches and stuff. They're really trying to move people away from some cash. And even though cash we have is worthless fiat, it still gives you privacy.
Right.
If you're in the CBDC or you have to use a card, there's no privacy.
Right, 100%. And so here's the progress of the CBDC push around the world. So this is up to date as of yesterday. And the purple is proof of concept, is already operational. And the pilot programs are the orange, and launched fully happens to be the blue. So as of now, it looks like Nigeria and, of course, the Sand Dollar and the Bahamas have full operational. And Jamaica just did an airdrop of people who downloaded the wallet early. And so we see the progress so far, and it's tugging along. But definitely, this is going to be a multi-year process. But with this current week's, CBDC announcement or executive order from Biden, I thumbed through the whole little executive order, and there was more CBDC talk than anything else in there. So basically, gave a thumbs up for the Federal Reserve to, I guess, take it to the next level. Even though I believe it's already operational and ready to go, but it's coming. And so the question is, will it be announced before the next market contagion or afterwards in response to it?
Yeah, I think it probably would be afterwards. It's always after a huge crisis that they bring out the solution.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. But that's why you need to keep stacking. See, I've got here a UK florin, which is 2 shillings.
Yeah.
I've actually got a Brazilian coin from 1907.
Yeah.
They had silver in Brazil. Everyone used money.
Every that's the thing. Every country had their own currency of gold.
We can trade privately, and no one knows about it.
Right.
You just have to find the people that are willing to trade.
Right.
And that's goods or services.
That's what they want to distract us from. The fact that nations are running the meadows and people are being distracted with digital blips on a publicly visible ledger.
Another good point as well. And we see a few weeks ago or in February, there was a Russian member of the Duma saying that they could use cryptocurrency to back the ruble with gold.
Gold back, yeah.
Gold back ruble. So
yeah, and I'd imagine that's a part of the plan as well. And so I don't think that's going to be redeemable by your average citizen in Russia, especially. But it might be just reestablished and confirmed trust, because I see gold being an anchor to the next system. But I don't think they're going to load ships and load planes to balance the ledgers out.
They should, though. They should make it redeemable for treasuries, for countries. So if Russia has a surplus with China at the end of the year, then Russia can go to the Chinese central bank and say, "Oh, here are your yuans. I want gold." Yeah. I think that should happen and ideally, it would be nice for the Russian people to be able to redeem, or you and we could redeem rubles for gold, and maybe they'll do that because did you see the news that they've stripped VAT from
gold sales? Yeah.
Yep. So that's because you can't have a redeemable ruble in gold if you charge VAT on the gold.
Right. And that right there was to me, that I ran about that earlier. That's a big move there, just because that puts more attention on gold, and in particular for their citizens to be able to do something with their rubles to protect themselves in anticipation of something that might be coming.
Sorry to interrupt you. I think the Russians are known to probably have they stack a lot of dollar bills. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of dollars, but that's going to end now. So they need a substitute, and that's gold.
Right.
And what that will do is that will help also support the ruble, even though the ruble has kind of collapsed recently.
Yeah.
I actually think looking at the finances of Russia has lulled that, and the wealth that they have, that the ruble will actually come back and be a very strong currency, believe it or not.
Right. And so throughout the week, I just happened to glance at the currencies measured against gold, and so as we can see here, I got the ruble, and the gold is a standard, and of course it's been tanking severely. But then you invert that the other way, and over the last month, we've seen people who held on to gold in ruble terms doing a lot better than just holding paper. So and that goes for every currency.
Well, like for example, here in the UK, there's VAT on silver, 20%, but if you were a Russian and you didn't buy gold because there's VAT, yeah, you would have lost 20% when you buy, but look at how it's gone up even more than 20%.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's good that they're taking VAT out of gold in Russia.
Right, I agree. So here's the activity in gold and the British pound over the last month. So compared to gold, we see the direction, and so all fiat currencies in a nutshell, when measured in the ultimate standard of gold, has been trending down faster within the last month than any time in modern history. So it's just the beginning, and it's still the middle of March. So let's real quick before we take in some questions or some thoughts. Jerome Powell, I guess the predictions is that it was going to be a half a point. Now they're saying that a quarter is pretty much baked in. So how will this quarter, which at the end of the day doesn't really matter, but in an already tightening economy, why are they jawboning the need to do this still? And then I noticed ECB just jumped on as well, talking about by September, I think, dialing back as well. So
yeah. Well, the thing is that they've telegraphed this rate hike so much, and it will be a quarter.
Yeah,
I think that's what Jay Powell said. That if they don't do it, they'll look. Not that they have any credibility, but to some people they still do. But I said that in a video of mine. It's like if you are on a boat, it's really windy, and you're going like against the wind, and you piss into the wind. It won't help. It won't help.
Right. Good point. Oh man. So let's get to some questions. Oh my goodness, that was a funny one. Let me see. So feel free, Mario, if you come through there, if you see anything to bring forth, feel free to do so. I'll go highlight at Rethinking the Dollar so to stand out.
Steiner asks, is Hunter Biden in the USA bunker?
He's been MIA. Like he's probably in and out of DC making some deals, no doubt. Because all this Ukrainian slush money that the Congress is trying to pass, it's going into the big guy's pocket. You better believe that.
Isn't there something about I think it was Romney's, Hunter Biden, and
Pelosi,
all their sons are directors in Ukrainian companies.
Throughout the last couple of years, they were. So I dug deep into that, and throughout the last couple of years, they passed through Ukraine in some capacity.
Low blood pressure. Can ruble hyperinflate against the dollar, but not against anything domestically? He says, I think so. I agree with you, and I think the ruble stabilize once it's going to start stabilize for. I think domestically, like you said, it won't look good against the dollar, but I think I think the gold factor is going to help the ruble.
Yeah,
and of course, right now, the Russians are probably paying a lot for imported stuff, but they can't really import that much. It's a tricky one, but long term, I think the ruble will be okay.
Yeah, here's something from Michael. I guess I thought he wanted to share. It says when that basket of cryptocurrencies is complete, it will be backed by gold. And so I'm assuming referring to just the digital asset space in general. He could be referring to the chosen platforms, XRP, Stellar, Algorand, all the World Economic Forum partners that helping usher in the technology to enslave us more. People are excited and think that their bags are going to get pumped in fiat currency terms, and they're going to be able to enjoy it with no problems in this reset. So I'll leave that alone. But what else we got out here?
Belly Dance Arabia says Russians are saying that their prices have remained the same. Well, that's good.
Yeah, and I mentioned that video earlier that somebody was going to gas station, basically highlighting gas prices in ruble terms. They were relatively stable, but in dollar terms, they're extremely low. So it's cheaper for them in gas than in here.
Yeah.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish.
No, I was going to talk about
Michael Atu says my wife has left me for some guy in the metaverse.
That's not good, man. That's not good. That's not good reflection of you, my friend.
Yeah,
she wanted virtual instead of the real thing. Here's something I forgot to mention as well about just the gas prices again. So Americans are paying dearly for gas at the price at the pump. And that tweet you sent me earlier about people just basically sharing their testimony of how they're spending buku dollars to fill up and they showing pictures. And so this is $100 got 21 gallons. So and over here in the U.S. especially, we went through the last 7-8 years. Everybody fell in love with getting a truck. So especially here in Metro Detroit, we got all the big three. I see more big SUVs on the road like never before, and I would imagine it's not going to fare too well throughout this year when gas prices, if they go higher the way they're expected to, and people having to put $200 to fill up a Yukon or Denali or something like that.
It's funny because the more things change, the more they become the same. Because I remember I grew up in the 70s, and I remember that Americans had huge cars in the 70s. You know, the Cadillacs, the Pontiac station wagons, and then you had the oil embargo, and everyone wanted to buy the small Japanese compacts.
Yeah.
And then everyone forgot about that, and now we're back to where we were. It's like we'll never learn.
The secretary, whoever Biden made the secretary, Lindsay. No,
Buttigieg.
Huh?
Buttigieg.
Buttigieg. No. What are you talking about? Buttigieg.
Buttigieg. He said, "Oh, gasoline's expensive, so buy an electric car."
Yeah. I'm thinking like, huh? With a smile on her face. Oh my goodness.
There's a meme going on there, and it's got a picture of supposedly Marie Antoinette, because she said to the French peasants, let them eat cake. And so it's Buttigieg, if you can't afford gas, buy an electric car, which is really more expensive, to buy an electric car. And electricity prices are going to go up, especially in Europe.
Right.
And also the stuff that you make the batteries with, all the rare earths and they come from Russia, a lot of it, and China.
Right. I this past week covered a lithium company, and just to see how that flew under the radar. But lithium over the last year, man, it's outrageous, and it's not much. The supply is minimum, but demand is high as ever for the batteries.
And isn't it mostly? I think is it Russian? Isn't it produced?
So here's the thing. So I interviewed a gentleman from a Chilean Argentinian company, and literally the next day or two, I read in the headlines that Argentina is looking to nationalize their nickel because they have some untapped resources down there, and so they're looking to nationalize their lithium beds down there. And I was like, damn, that's
Actually, I'm sorry, I don't think Russia is not in the top 8 of lithium producers, but I see here that Australia is number 1, Chile, China, and then Argentina.
Yeah, so there was some hot projects down there, but I'm thinking like the fact that China is in dire need, and now basically Argentina and Chile, they've all bought into China. China's invested heavily into those countries there, so they probably gonna get first dibs. So all private usage might be limited or canceled. So I think there's going to be a lot of nationalizing of mines moving forward globally. So that might falter with the gold and silver as well, because those are typically most of the projects I've been looking at. They're byproducts to the rare earth minerals that they're primarily going after. So it's going to be a lot of issues, man. What else? Keep it moving. But for those tuned in, definitely hit the thumbs up button, show your support for the channel. And let me see a couple more thoughts here. Then we can dial back. Silver is the most undervalued asset in the world of technological advances. Yeah. So let's talk about silver a little bit, because it did not get quite. It got I think $2 activity, give or take. But I was mentioning earlier how that will be the prick that the pin that pricks all the bubbles, because if they lose control of silver and it goes beyond 30, which everyone kind of says that's the turning point for everything, then game over. But we got up to 26.36, and then they took it back down. Yeah. But this year, Mario, will we see 30 plus and beyond, or what?
I think so. Yeah, I do.
And that's because of all them losing control of the paper charades that they cannot sustain.
Yeah, and I think like that commenter said, that it's the most undervalued asset in the world, and I think. Yes, they're trying to basically. I don't know what their game is, but silver's been consolidating since the summer of 2020.
Yeah,
and it really hasn't. It got to below 12 in March 2020, then almost straight up to 30. And I think now we're starting the next move higher. And 50 was touched in 2011 and 1980.
Yeah.
And to think that a lot of other commodities are near their all-time highs and silver's still here. And even compared to gold, silver is very undervalued. So,
Yeah.
but there will be one day where we could see silver really do a nickel.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the physical, you won't be able to get it.
Yeah, I do agree. So just looking at this all the way back to 79 or 70 was it all time 1980. And it's here, so I'm assuming it says $39. So assuming that's
it was
42.
intraday, it almost got up to 50. That was
Yeah.
the Hunt Brothers top. Yeah.
Yeah, so we are in for a heck of a ride in silver. So of course, manipulation is your friend. Take advantage of it while you still can, because once the game is over, we're in a whole new world, people. All right, Mario, we about that 45-minute standpoint. As always, it's good to connect and get some thoughts out there. Here's a question from Belly Dance. It says, what is a good advice when to pull out of the miners before they nationalize the miners? Just first thought come to my mind is that as long as the paper game is still strong, you're probably good. But once they lose control of the paper game, not able to suppress the prices, they're going to need to get their weight up as well, especially the U.S. and every other nation. So at that point, game over with. Now, let's, as they always do, let's change the rules of the game. And now the rules will be changed as far as them nationalizing all the hot mines. Because the Canadian region, the northwest and the Yukon area, it's like just a booming industry of miners. And of course, we got the federal lands here that hasn't even been touched with the Grand Canyons and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting.
The other thing I would say, yeah, there's always that risk, but try to diversify and try to have not just one or two miners, have a more. And if one of them gets nationalized, that's the risk you have to take.
Right.
Another one that you might have will make up for it, because I think we're still in the beginning of a huge bull market in the miners and precious metals. And from what I've heard historically, like in the 70s, you had 20, 50, 100 baggers in the, especially in the small junior exploration.
Yeah. Well, people, let's get ready to dial back. As always, for those tuning in, we got Manico64 over here, and it's always good to connect. Let's, I guess, end off on some thoughts for the weekend, Mario. Anything you want to share with us before we pull back?
Yeah, again, just try to ignore a lot of the noise about what's going on in the world and focus, because I think what they're trying to do is like a head fake. You know that better than I do, playing basketball. You look the other way and you pass the ball,
right?
And I think that's what's happening now. It's the biggest head fake in our lifetime. And what you need to focus on is not just your financial well-being, but also spiritual, and try to avoid all the confrontation, division. I heard from someone in the States that people are like blaming other people in the States for the high gas prices.
Really?
Which is,
I ain't heard that one yet.
There's a lot of, it's Biden's fault, and I'm not defending Biden. It's not. It's the fault of the fiat currency system that's coming to an end. And that's what people need to realize, and be nice to each other. That's what I mean.
Right. Walk in love with your fellow man and brother and sister, and of course, focus on things you can control. And as I always mention, you got the natural elements of what we're seeing. We know how to respond from a practical standpoint. Do everything you can to prepare as best you can. But of course, put it all in the Lord's hands from a spiritual standpoint, and get your faith up as well. So, because you're definitely going to need it. We all going to need it. So, all right, people, be blessed, be safe. And I'll leave you with a little bit of Jerome Powell talking about the dual currency that we started off talking about in the first place. But other than that, be blessed, be safe. See you guys later.
We do benefit from being the reserve currency for the main reserve currency for the world. And that really is because we have open capital accounts and the rule of law, and we have inflation, over a long period of time under control, so that the dollar preserves its value. And so our markets are the most liquid, and it's the place where people want to be. Over time, the question is, if some want to move away from the dollar, what will be the effect on us? I don't think it's something you would feel right away. Over time, they would have to create an economic ecosystem whereby another currency becomes, a better currency for them to use. What we can do is we can make the dollar the most attractive currency by continuing to have the rule of law and open capital accounts and make it an attractive place for people to invest and to use in their businesses. There wouldn't be any short-term effect of that. Over time, though, I suppose it would diminish our status as the reserve currency. It's also possible to have more than one large reserve currency, and there have been times when that was the case, and so it's not really clear.